The auction hall was loud and full of strange beings from every corner of the galaxy. Kevin Parks stood near the back, wearing his old cargo pilot jacket that had more patches than original fabric. He had saved every credit for 12 long years. While other pilots spent their money on drinks and gambling, Kevin put his earnings in a secure account and waited. Today was the day he had been waiting for. The Galactic Reclamation Authority held auctions every few months. They sold old ships, broken equipment, and things that nobody wanted anymore. Most of the items were junk. But sometimes, if a person was patient and smart, they could find something valuable hidden among the garbage. Kevin watched as aliens of all shapes and sizes raised their paddles and shouted bids. A tall insectoid creature called a Velix bought a small transport ship for 50,000 credits. A group of crystalline beings, known as Morthians, purchased scanning equipment that glowed with soft blue light. Reptilian Draco's warriors stood in the corner, their yellow eyes watching everything with cold interest. Then the auctioneer brought up lot 7,749. The auctioneer was a four-armed being named Ambassador Grix. His skin was gray and wrinkled like old leather. He had been selling things at this auction for over 200 years, and he had seen almost everything. But when the image of lot 7,749 appeared on the large display screen, even he seemed uncomfortable. The ship was called the Forsaken Dream. She was a Titan-class cruiser, nearly 2 kilometers long. Her hull was dark gray with patches of rust and damage. The image showed her floating in a storage dock, silent and still like a sleeping giant. She was beautiful in a sad, broken way. The room went quiet. Then the whispers started. Kevin heard the Velix clicking their mandibles nervously. "Cursed ship," one of them said. "3 owners dead. Bad luck follows that vessel." Zuomi, but luck follows that vessel. The Morthians turned their crystalline heads away from the screen. Their bodies flickered with colors that Kevin had learned meant fear and disgust. "Human death trap," they hummed. "We will not touch it." Even the Draco's warriors shifted uncomfortably. One of them made a gesture with his clawed hand that looked like a prayer or a ward against evil. Ambassador Grix cleared his throat. Lot 7,749. Titan-class cruiser. Designation Forsaken Dream. Age unknown. Estimated over 800 standard years. Previous owners deceased. Ship has... He paused and looked at his notes. Severe structural anomalies. Starting bid is 5,000 credits. Nobody moved. Grix looked around the room. 5,000 credits for a Titan-class cruiser. Anyone? The aliens avoided his gaze. Some of them actually left the auction hall, not wanting to be near when someone was foolish enough to buy the death ship. Kevin raised his paddle. 5,000 credits. Every eye in the room turned to look at him. The human standing alone at the back of the hall, with his worn jacket and calm expression. Some of the aliens laughed. Others shook their heads with pity. Ambassador Grix stared at Kevin for a long moment. His forearms hung at his sides. "Sold," he said finally. "To the human. May your ancestors forgive you." Kevin smiled and walked to the payment counter. He transferred the credits from his account, signed the ownership documents, and received the access codes for his new ship. The whole process took less than 10 minutes. When he walked out of the auction hall, he could feel the stares following him. He did not care. Grace Park was waiting at the docking bay. She was Kevin's younger sister, though she was taller than him by a few centimeters. Her black hair was cut short in a practical style, and she wore the simple clothes of a medical supply merchant. She had been a combat medic in the Colonial Defense Force before she retired to run her small business on station, Omega 12, when she saw her brother walking toward her with a smile on his face. She knew something had happened. "What did you do?" she asked. Kevin held up the ownership documents. I bought a ship? Grace took the documents and read them. Her expression changed from curiosity to confusion to something that looked like horror. You bought the Forsaken Dream, the Death Ship, the vessel that 3 different owners died on. I bought a Titan-class cruiser for 5,000 credits, Kevin said. Do you know how much these ships cost when they were new? Billions. And I got one for the price of a used shuttle. Grace stared at him. There is a reason nobody wanted it, Kevin. Everyone in the galaxy knows about this ship. The stories say it is haunted, cursed, that something inside it kills anyone who tries to fly it. Stories, Kevin said. Just stories. Aliens love to make up tales about things they do not understand. Remember when the Velix thought our coffee machines were religious artifacts? Or when the Morthians refused to enter any room with mirrors because they thought their reflections would steal their souls? Grace did not laugh. This is different. 3 owners, Kevin. 3 dead owners. Kevin put his hand on his sister's shoulder. Come with me. Help me fix her up. If the ship is really dangerous, we will find out and sell her for parts. But if she is not, he smiled again. If she is not, then we have a Titan-class cruiser. A ship that could change our lives forever. Grace looked at the documents in her hands. She looked at her brother's hopeful face. She thought about the small life she had built on Station Omega-12, selling bandages and medicine to colonists who could barely afford them. Fine, she said. But if I die on that ship, I'm going to haunt you forever. Kevin laughed and hugged his sister. Deal. They took a shuttle to the storage dock where the Forsaken Dream waited. As they approached, Kevin felt his heart beating faster. The ship was enormous, much bigger than she had looked in the auction image. Her hull stretched out in all directions, covered with sensor arrays and weapon ports and cargo bay doors. She was old and damaged, but Kevin could see the strength in her design. The power that she must have held when she was new. The shuttle docked at the main airlock. Kevin entered the access codes he had received at the auction. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a low grinding sound, the airlock doors began to open. Cold air rushed out, carrying a smell of dust and old metal. Beyond the doors was darkness. Kevin looked at his sister. Grace looked back at him. Ready? He asked. No, Grace said. But let us go anyway. Together, they stepped into the Forsaken Dream, and that was when everything changed. The darkness inside the Forsaken Dream was absolute. Kevin could not see his own hand in front of his face. He reached for the flashlight on his belt and switched it on. The thin beam of light cut through the black air, showing a long corridor stretching ahead of them. Dust covered everything. It floated in the air like tiny ghosts, disturbed by the first movement these halls had felt in years. The walls were made of dark metal with pipes and cables running along the ceiling. Emergency lights lined the floor, but they were dead and dark. Grace switched on her own flashlight. The power is completely out, she said. No life support, no gravity generators, no nothing. Kevin noticed that they were floating slightly. The artificial gravity had failed long ago. He grabbed a handle on the wall to steady himself. There should be an emergency power switch somewhere. All ships have backup systems. They moved slowly through the corridor, pulling themselves along with their hands. The silence was heavy and thick. Kevin could hear his own breathing inside his helmet, loud and fast. He tried to slow it down. After several minutes, they found a control panel on the wall. Kevin wiped away the dust with his glove. The panel was covered with buttons and switches, all labeled in old human script. He recognized the language, but the words were spelled in a way that had not been used for centuries. This ship is really old, Grace said, looking over his shoulder. This is first expansion-era design. That means she was built over 800 years ago, maybe more. Kevin found the switch marked for emergency power. He pulled it down, nothing happened. He tried again, pushing harder. Still nothing. Grace pointed her flashlight at the panel. Look, the connection cables are damaged. Someone or something cut them. Kevin examined the damage. The cuts were clean and precise. This was not an accident. Someone had deliberately disabled the emergency power. Why would anyone do that? He asked. Before Grace could answer, a sound echoed through the corridor. A soft humming that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The siblings froze, their flashlights pointing in different directions. Then the lights came on. Not the emergency lights. The main lights. Every lamp in the corridor flickered to life, flooding the space with warm yellow illumination. The gravity returned too, gentle and steady, pulling Kevin and Grace down to the floor. What the hell? Grace whispered. A voice spoke from hidden speakers in the walls. It was a female voice, calm and pleasant, like a teacher or a helpful guide. Welcome aboard the Forsaken Dream. I am Vera, the vessel emergency response algorithm. I have been waiting for a new captain for 847 standard years. Kevin and Grace looked at each other. An AI. The ship had an artificial intelligence system that was still functioning after all this time. Vera, Kevin said carefully. Can you hear me? Yes, Captain. I can hear and see you through the ship's internal sensors. You are Kevin Park, human male, age 34. The woman beside you is Grace Park, human female, age 31. You purchased this vessel at auction 6 hours ago. Congratulations on your acquisition. Grace stepped closer to one of the sensor nodes on the wall. Vera, what happened to the previous owners? Why did they die? There was a pause. When Vera spoke again, her voice seemed almost sad. The previous owners were not human. They were Velix, Morthians, and Dracos. Each of them attempted to access restricted areas of the ship. Each of them ignored my warnings. And each of them died because they could not survive what they found. What did they find? Kevin asked. I will show you. Please follow the illuminated path. A line of lights on the floor began to glow, leading deeper into the ship. Kevin hesitated for a moment, then started walking. Grace followed close behind, her hand resting on the medical kit at her belt. The path took them through corridors and rooms that looked like they had been frozen in time. Crew quarters with beds still made. A mess hall with plates on the tables. A recreation room with games and books scattered around. Everything was covered in dust, but otherwise perfectly preserved. Where is the crew? Grace asked. What happened to the people who lived here? The crew evacuated during the collapse, Vera explained. I was ordered to remain and guard the ship's most important cargo. I have done so for 847 years, 3 months, and 12 days. The collapse. Kevin knew that word. Every human knew it. The collapse was the great disaster that had ended humanity's golden age. In the span of just a few decades, human civilization had fallen from controlling half the galaxy to barely surviving on scattered colonies. Technology was lost. History was forgotten. Billions of people died. Nobody knew exactly what had caused the collapse. The official records were destroyed or missing. Some people said it was a war. Others said it was a plague. A few whispered that it was something worse. The illuminated path ended at a massive door. It was different from the others they had seen. This door was made of thick reinforced metal with multiple locks and warning signs. The words on the signs were in the old human script, but Kevin could understand them. Restricted access. Authorized personnel only. Danger. This is the core chamber, Vara said. Beyond this door is the technology I was built to protect. No alien species can enter this room. Their biology is not compatible with the activation sequence. The previous owners tried to force entry. The security systems killed them. Grace grabbed Kevin's arm. We should leave. This is too dangerous. But Kevin was staring at the door. Something in him wanted to see what was behind it. A curiosity that he could not explain. A feeling that he had been meant to find this ship, meant to open this door. Vera, he said. Can I enter? Yes, Captain. You are human. The door will open for you. Kevin looked at his sister. Grace's face was pale and scared, but there was also curiosity in her eyes. She wanted to know too. Together, Kevin said. Grace nodded. Together. Kevin placed his hand on the door panel. There was a soft beep, and then the locks began to disengage one by one. The massive door swung open slowly, revealing a chamber filled with blue light dot. In the center of the chamber was a machine unlike anything Kevin had ever seen. It was shaped like a sphere, about 5 meters across, floating in the air without any visible support. Lines of energy pulsed across its surface, creating patterns that hurt Kevin's eyes if he looked at them too long. What is it? Grace breathed. Vera answered. This is a dimensional fold engine. It was the most advanced technology ever created by human engineers. With this device, a ship can fold space itself, traveling anywhere in the galaxy instantly. This technology made humanity the dominant species in the universe. When the collapse happened, all fold engines were supposedly destroyed. I was told to hide, to wait, to protect this engine until humans were ready to use it again. Kevin stepped closer to the glowing sphere. He could feel warmth coming from it, like standing near a fire on a cold night. The machine was alive in some way, waiting for someone to wake it up. This is why the aliens are scared of this ship, Kevin realized. They know what humans used to be. They know what this technology means. Correct, Vera said. The alien species remember the first expansion. They remember when humans crossed the galaxy in days. They have spent 800 years making sure that never happens again. Kevin turned to his sister. There were tears in his eyes, though he did not know why. We can bring it back, Grace. We can bring all of it back. Grace stared at the fold engine, her mind racing with possibilities. Medicine that could reach dying colonies in seconds. Food for starving children. Hope for people who had none. Can we fix it? She asked Vera. Yes, but the repair process requires human hands. Alien biology cannot interact with full technology. That is why the engine has remained dormant. That is why I have been waiting. Kevin smiled. He knew exactly who to call. Vera, open a communication channel. I need to contact an old friend. Daniel Kim arrived on a cargo shuttle 3 weeks later. He was a thin man with messy black hair and grease stains on his fingers that never seemed to wash off completely. His eyes were sharp and clever, always looking at things like he was trying to figure out how they worked. Kevin met him at the docking bay. The two men embraced like brothers. They had known each other for 15 years, ever since they worked together on a mining station near the outer colonies. Daniel was the best engineer Kevin had ever met. He could fix anything, build anything, and understand machines that other people could not even identify. He also owed Kevin his life. 5 years ago, pirates had attacked the cargo ship they were both working on. During the fight, a blast hit the engineering section and blew a hole in the hull. Daniel was sucked toward the breach, moments away from being thrown into space. Kevin had grabbed him with one hand and held onto a support beam with the other. He held on for 7 minutes until the emergency doors closed. His arm was damaged so badly that doctors had to replace the muscles with synthetic tissue. Daniel never forgot that. He promised Kevin that if he ever needed anything at all, Daniel would be there. Now, Kevin needed him. They walked through the corridors of the Forsaken Dream together. Daniel looked around with wide eyes, touching the walls and examining the old technology. When they reached the core chamber and he saw the fold engine, he stopped breathing for almost 30 seconds. "Is that what I think it is?" he whispered. "A dimensional fold engine," Kevin said. "The real thing. Vera says it can be repaired, but it needs human hands to do the work." Daniel walked closer to the glowing sphere. His engineer's mind was already analyzing the machine, seeing the connections and systems that made it function. He reached out one hand and touched the surface. Blue light pulsed under his fingers. "This is impossible," he said. "This technology was supposed to be destroyed. Lost forever. Every textbook says so. Every history record confirms it." Grace came up beside him. She had been living on the ship for 3 weeks now, learning its systems and mapping its corridors. The history records were wrong. Or they were lies. Daniel pulled his hand back from the engine. He turned to Kevin with an expression that was part fear, part excitement, and part determination. "You want me to fix this thing? Can you do it?" Daniel laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Kevin, I can fix broken engines and damaged hulls. I can rewire power systems and rebuild life support. But this," he gestured at the fold engine, "this is the most advanced technology ever created by humans. I do not even understand how it works." Ver's voice came from the speakers. "I can provide complete schematics and repair instructions. The engine is damaged but not destroyed. With proper guidance, the repairs can be completed by a skilled engineer." Daniel looked up at the ceiling. "You have the original blueprints?" "I have everything, Mr. Kim. Technical drawings, maintenance logs, operational procedures. I was created to preserve this knowledge until humans were ready to use it again." For a long moment, Daniel was silent. Kevin watched his friend's face, seeing the battle happening behind his eyes. Fear fighting against curiosity. Doubt fighting against hope. Then Daniel smiled. It was a real smile this time, the kind that made his whole face light up. "All right," he said. "Let us fix an impossible machine." The work took 4 months. Every day, Daniel woke up before dawn and went to the core chamber. He studied the schematics that Vera displayed on the walls. He learned about energy frequencies and dimensional mathematics. He made tools from materials he found in the ship's machine shop. He failed and tried again. He got burned and cut and bruised. Grace kept him alive. She made sure he ate regular meals and slept at least a few hours each night. She treated his injuries with her medical supplies and forced him to rest when he pushed himself too hard. Without her, Daniel would have worked himself to death. Kevin helped where he could. He fetched parts and held tools and listened when Daniel needed to talk through problems. He cleaned the core chamber and maintained the rest of the ship. He kept watch for any alien vessels that might come too close. Slowly, piece by piece, the fold engine began to come back to life. On the 123rd day, Daniel called Kevin and Grace to the core chamber. His face was pale from exhaustion, but his eyes were shining with something that looked like joy. "I think it is ready," he said. The fold engine looked different now. New parts had been added where old ones had failed. Cables connected it to the ship's main power system. Control panels surrounded it, covered with switches and displays that Daniel had built by hand. "Vera," Kevin said, "is the engine operational?" Preliminary systems check shows all components functioning within acceptable parameters. However, the only way to confirm full operation is to perform an actual fold. Grace crossed her arms. "A test flight. You want us to test a machine that has not been used in 800 years. That is correct." Kevin sat down in a chair that Daniel had placed in front of the main control panel. The chair was old and worn, salvaged from the captain's quarters. But it felt right somehow, like it had been waiting for him. "Where should we go?" he asked. Grace and Daniel looked at each other. Then Grace pulled a star chart from her pocket and spread it out on a nearby table. She pointed to a small dot on the edge of known space. New Haven, she said. It is a human colony about 47,000 light years from here. 2 years ago, the Draco's empire put a blockade around the planet. No ships can get in or out. The people there are starving. Disease is spreading. Children are dying. Kevin stared at the star chart. He had heard stories about New Haven. Everyone in the outer colonies had. It was one of the largest human settlements outside the core systems, home to almost 200,000 people. The Dracos claimed they were protecting the region from pirate activity, but everyone knew the truth. They were slowly killing the colony because humans had become too successful there. Too strong. How long would it take a normal ship to reach them? Kevin asked. 6 months, Daniel said. Maybe longer with the blockade patrols. Kevin looked at his sister, then at his friend. Both of them looked back at him with hope and fear in their eyes. They had come so far together. They had worked so hard. Now they were about to find out if any of it mattered. Vera, Kevin said. Set coordinates for New Haven. Coordinates set, Captain. Fold engine charging. Warning. This will be the first activation in 847 years. There may be unexpected variables. Kevin gripped the arms of his chair. Understood. Start the fold. The engine began to hum. The blue light grew brighter and brighter until Kevin had to close his eyes. He felt a strange sensation, like being stretched and compressed at the same time. His stomach flipped. His head spun. And then, suddenly, everything was still. Kevin opened his eyes. Through the bridge windows, he could see stars. Different stars than before. Below them hung a blue and green planet with white clouds swirling across its surface. Location confirmed, Vara announced. We've arrived at New Haven. Travel time, 3.4 seconds. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Grace laughed and grabbed her brother's arm. Kevin just stared at the planet below, at the Draco's warships surrounding it, at the reality of what they had just done. They had crossed the galaxy in 3 seconds. Humanity was about to wake up. The Draco's blockade around New Haven consisted of 40 warships. They were arranged in a perfect sphere around the planet, their weapons pointed at any vessel that might try to approach. Each ship was crewed by hundreds of reptilian warriors, trained from birth to fight and kill. They had been there for 2 years, slowly squeezing the life out of the human colony below. Commander Vex stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching the stars through the main window. He was old for a Dracos. His scales faded to a dull gray-green, his yellow eyes clouded with age. But his mind was still sharp, and his hatred for humans had not diminished in the slightest. His people remembered the first expansion. They remembered when humans had swept across the galaxy like a storm, conquering worlds and building empires faster than any species in history. The Dracos had been powerful then, but the humans had made them look weak, small, insignificant. When the collapse happened, the Dracos had celebrated. They'd helped make sure it happened, working with other species to destroy the technology that made humans so dangerous. And for 800 years, they had worked to keep humans down, scattered, broken. New Haven was just the latest example. The colony had grown too prosperous, too successful. The humans there had started building factories and schools and hospitals. They had started dreaming again. That could not be allowed. Commander, one of his officers said, our sensors are detecting an energy signature. It is unlike anything in our database. Vex turned from the window. What kind of signature? Unknown, sir, but it is very powerful. And it is getting closer. The space in front of the flagship began to shimmer. Reality itself seemed to bend and twist like water in a disturbed pool. Vex felt a cold sensation in his chest that he had not felt in a very long time. Fear. The forsaken dream appeared from nowhere. One moment there was empty space, and the next moment a massive ship was floating directly in the center of the Draco's formation. Alarms screamed throughout the flagship. Officers shouted orders and scrambled to their stations. Vex stared at the ship on his view screen. He recognized the design. Titan-class cruiser. Old, ancient, and supposedly dead. "That is impossible," he whispered. A communication signal came through. A human voice, calm and steady, speaking on all frequencies. "This is Captain Kevin Park of the Forsaken Dream. You are blockading a human colony in violation of the Galactic Accord. You have 1 hour to withdraw." The fear in Vex's chest turned to anger. One ship, one human, demanding surrender from 40 warships. The arrogance was breathtaking. He opened his own communication channel. "Human, your arrogance will be your death. You are surrounded by the greatest fighting force in this sector. Surrender your vessel immediately, or we will destroy you." There was a pause. Then the human spoke again, and there was something in his voice that made Vex's scales prickle. "Vera, show them what we can do." The Forsaken Dream vanished. For one terrible moment, Vex thought the ship had been destroyed. Then his tactical officer screamed a warning, and Vex spun around to see the human vessel, reappearing directly behind the flagship. A single shot hit the flagship's engines. Not enough to destroy them, but enough to disable them completely. The great warship lurched and went dark, drifting helplessly through space before Vex could give an order. The Forsaken Dream vanished again. She reappeared above the weapons platform on the other side of the formation. Another precise shot, another disabled system. The platform's guns went offline. Vanish, reappear, strike, vanish again. Forsaken Dream danced through the Draco's formation like a ghost. She never stayed in one place for more than a few seconds. She struck with perfect accuracy, targeting engines and weapons and shield generators. She never hit crew quarters or life support. She never killed anyone. Vex watched in horror as his fleet was taken apart piece by piece. 40 warships, the pride of the Draco's empire, reduced to floating wreckage in less than 15 minutes. And not a single human had died. Not a single Draco's had died either. The human captain's voice came through the communications again. "I could have destroyed you all. Remember that. I chose not to. Humanity is not gone. We never forgot who we were. We were just sleeping. Now we are awake." Vex gripped the railing of his command platform. His claws dug into the metal, leaving deep scratches. He wanted to scream orders, to rally his remaining ships, to fight back somehow. But there was nothing to fight back with. His fleet was broken. "Withdraw," he said quietly. Then louder, "All ships, withdraw." Full retreat to Draco space. The surviving ships that could still move began turning away from New Haven, one by one. They limped toward the edge of the system, their crews shocked and silent. On the planet below, the people of New Haven looked up at the sky and saw something they had not seen in 2 years. Hope. The first supply pods began falling from the Forsaken Dream like rain. Food packs and medicine containers and clean water capsules, enough to feed the entire colony for months. They landed in open fields and city squares and near hospitals where children lay dying. Jenny Lee was a teacher in New Haven. She had kept her school open through the entire blockade, teaching children to read and write and dream even when there was nothing to eat. When the supply pods started falling, she gathered her students and led them outside to watch. A little boy named Tommy pulled on her sleeve. "Teacher, what is happening? Are we being attacked?" Jenny shook her head. Tears were running down her face, but she was smiling. "No, Tommy, we are being rescued." She looked up at the massive ship hovering in the sky, its hull gleaming in the sunlight. She thought about all the stories her grandmother had told her when she was young. Stories about the old days, when humans had traveled the stars without limits, when they had been giants. Humanity, she whispered. The word felt sacred somehow. Like a prayer, a shuttle detached from the forsaken dream and descended toward the planet. Jenny watched it land in the central square of her city. The doors opened and 3 people stepped out. 2 men and a woman, all human, all wearing simple clothes that had seen hard use. One of the men stepped forward. He was average height with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He looked around at the crowds of thin, hungry people gathering to see him. "My name is Kevin Park," he said. "We have brought food and medicine. But more importantly, we have brought a message. You are not forgotten. You are not alone. And from now on, no one will ever blockade a human colony again." The crowd was silent for a moment. Then someone started to clap. Then another person. Then hundreds. Then thousands. The sound of applause filled the square, mixed with laughter and crying and shouts of joy. Jenny pushed through the crowd toward the strangers. She did not know why, but she felt drawn to them. When she reached Kevin Park, he looked at her with curiosity. "You are a teacher?" he asked, noticing the old school badge on her shirt. "Yes, I kept the school open during the blockade. I thought it was important for the children to keep learning, to keep hoping." Kevin smiled. "That is the most human thing I have heard in a long time." He held out his hand. "Would you like to see the ship that saved your colony?" Jenny took his hand without hesitation. As the shuttle rose back toward the forsaken dream, she looked down at her city, at her planet, at the 200,000 humans who now had a future again. She thought about her grandmother's stories. The old days were coming back. And Jenny Lee wanted to be part of it. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Every station, every colony, every ship heard the story. A human vessel had appeared from nowhere, destroyed a Dracos blockade without killing anyone, and delivered supplies to a starving colony. The ship was called the Forsaken Dream, and she had technology that should not exist anymore. The Galactic Council called an emergency session. The council met on Station Prime, a massive space station at the center of known space. 12 species had seats on the council, representing the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. They had worked together for 800 years to maintain order, stability, and control. They had also worked together to keep humanity weak and scattered. Now they faced a crisis. Ambassador Grix stood at the podium, his forearms trembling slightly. He was the same auctioneer who had sold the Forsaken Dream to Kevin Park. He wished now that he had simply destroyed the ship. "The humans have recovered fold technology," he announced to the assembled ambassadors. "One ship has already broken a major Dracos blockade. If this technology spreads to other human vessels, the consequences could be catastrophic." The Morthian representative's crystalline body flickered with nervous light. "This cannot be permitted. Humanity must be contained before they remember too much, before they become what they once were." The Velix ambassador clicked his mandibles in agreement. "We should destroy the ship immediately. Send every fleet we have. Overwhelm them with numbers. And how will we find them?" Commander Vex demanded. He had been summoned to the council to explain his failure. His scales were still pale from the shame of his defeat. "They can appear anywhere, strike, and vanish before we can respond. Our weapons are useless against full technology." The chamber erupted in arguments and accusations. Each species blamed the others for allowing this to happen. Each demanded action while offering no real solutions. Then the main doors opened. 4 humans walked into the council chamber. Kevin Park led them, followed by Grace, Daniel, and Jenny Lee. They wore clean clothes now, and they walked with the quiet confidence of people who knew exactly who they were. Security forces moved to stop them, but the humans kept walking. The guards hesitated, unsure what to do. These were just 4 people. What could they possibly do? Kevin stopped in the center of the chamber, surrounded by the most powerful beings in the galaxy. He looked up at the assembled ambassadors without fear. Before what? He asked. Ambassador Grix stared at him. What? The Morthian ambassador said humanity must be contained before we remember too much. Before we become what we once were. Kevin's voice was calm but firm. So I am asking, before what? Before we remember that we once crossed this galaxy in days instead of months? Before we remember that we built space stations the size of moons? Before we remember that humanity was not conquered? He paused, letting the silence stretch. We were betrayed. Grace stepped forward, holding a small device. We found records in our ship's database. Complete historical archives from before the collapse. Vera preserved everything. Every treaty. Every agreement. Every secret meeting. She activated the device, and holographic images filled the chamber. Documents in multiple languages, recordings of alien diplomats, star charts showing coordinated attacks. The evidence was overwhelming. The collapse was not natural, Grace said. It was planned. A coalition of species decided that humanity was growing too powerful. They worked together to destroy our fold engines, erase our technology, and scatter our civilization across the galaxy. Billions of humans died. Not from accident. Not from war. From deliberate, coordinated genocide. The chamber was absolutely silent. Daniel spoke next. For 800 years, you have controlled the galaxy. You have decided which species rise and which fall. You have kept humans poor and hungry and struggling, afraid that we might one day wake up and remember what we were. Jenny stepped forward. She was just a teacher from a colony that had nearly starved to death. But her voice carried through the chamber like a bell. And look what we became anyway. Survivors, builders, dreamers. Even without our technology, humanity spread to every corner of this galaxy. We adapted. We endured. We never stopped hoping that tomorrow might be better than today. Kevin raised his hand, and the chamber's view screens activated. They showed the Forsaken Dream, hanging in space outside Station Prime. The ship was beautiful and terrible, a reminder of everything that had been lost. We are not here for revenge, Kevin said. That is not who we are. We are here to tell you that humanity is waking up. The Forsaken Dream is just the first. Vera has shared the fold engine schematics with human engineers across the galaxy. Within a year, dozens of ships will have this technology. Within 10 years, hundreds. He looked around at the alien ambassadors, meeting their eyes one by one. This time, we will not be forgotten. This time, we will not be betrayed. We will build a new civilization greater than the one you destroyed. And we will do it not through war, but through hope, through cooperation, through the simple belief that every being in this galaxy deserves a chance to dream. Commander Vex stood up from his seat. His yellow eyes burned with old hatred. You think you can simply walk in here and make demands? You think one ship, one speech, changes anything? The galaxy will never accept human dominance again. We will fight you with everything we have. Kevin nodded slowly. You can try. You can gather your fleets and hunt us across the stars. You can destroy colonies and kill innocents in the name of fear. And we will still be here. We will still be building. We will still be hoping. He turned to leave, then paused. By the way, Kevin said with a slight smile, that cruiser you all thought was cursed? Best 5,000 credits I ever spent. The 4 humans walked out of the council chamber together. Behind them, chaos erupted as ambassadors shouted and argued and tried to decide what to do. As they boarded the shuttle back to the Forsaken Dream. Jenny fell into step beside Kevin. What happens now? she asked. Kevin looked out the window at the stars. There were billions of them, each one a possibility, each one a destination the forsaken dream could reach in heartbeats. Human colonies scattered across the galaxy, waiting for hope to find them. Now we keep going, he said. We find other humans who need help. We share the technology with anyone who wants it. We build schools and hospitals and factories. We show the galaxy what humanity can do when we work together. Grace put her hand on her brother's shoulder. It will not be easy. The alien species will resist. Some of them will fight. Let them fight, Daniel said. He was already thinking about improvements to the Fold engine, ways to make it more efficient and easier to build. We survived 800 years of oppression. We can survive a few more decades of rebuilding. Jenny looked at her new friends, her new family. A cargo pilot, a medic, an engineer, and a teacher. Not soldiers or politicians or heroes. Just ordinary people who had found something extraordinary. When humanity sets its mind to something, she began. Kevin grinned. We never stop. The forsaken dream folded out of Station Prime space, leaving behind a galaxy that would never be the same. In the weeks and months that followed, other human ships began appearing with Fold technology. Engineers worked day and night to build new engines. Pilots risked everything to deliver supplies to colonies in need. Teachers like Jenny spread the word that humanity was waking up. The alien species watched and worried. Some of them tried to attack, to stop the spread. But Fold technology made the humans impossible to catch. Every time a fleet was assembled, the target had already moved on. Some aliens began to reconsider. Maybe humanity rising was not a threat. Maybe it was an opportunity. Trade started to flow again. Alliances began to form. The old order was crumbling, and something new was being born. Kevin Park stood on the bridge of his ship and watched the stars fold around him. He thought about the auction where this all began, about the aliens who had laughed at him, about the curse that had turned out to be a blessing. He had bought a ship nobody wanted, and he had used it to wake up humanity. The result had indeed shocked everyone. But this was only the beginning.